You must be pretty happy about this, Tony Burke.
Well, it's all falling into a bit of a shambles now from the government's end, and there's been a fair bit of lack of competence in the way they've dealt with it. I think the problem that this bill's faced right from the start is the fact that they had the working groups. They said they were wanting to get some sort of consensus, and then they just went and did their own thing anyway. If you bring people to the table, there's a reasonable expectation that you'll listen to them. But measure after measure here ends up simply failing the simple tests that we put forward, which was it had to deliver secure jobs with decent pay. This makes job security harder and makes it harder to get a pay rise as well.
Well, has Labor put forward its own amendments?
There'll be some areas that we circulate later in the day. I mean, our position, as you know, has been for the bill to be defeated in full, and we don't resolve from that. If we end up in a situation where we're dealing with where we get to the amendment stage, if we're not successful in defeating it in full, then there's different areas of amendments that we've been putting forward.
We're looking at this current situation and thinking, well, the status quo isn't working for workers either. You have a plan that you're taking to the next election, but that's at least a year away. So what can change now? What will you facilitate to change now?
Well, really simple test, as I said. Anything that delivers secure jobs with decent pay.
That's very vague,
so
Tony
the
Burke.
problem for
Come on, give us something more.
For example, with the wage theft provisions, at the moment what the government has put forward with wage theft helps in many parts of Australia, but actually takes you backwards in Victoria and Queensland. So there's a capacity there where you allow states which have stronger laws than what the Commonwealth has brought forward for those laws to remain. I mean, when the government announced, even before the working groups, that they were going to introduce wage theft laws, I don't think anyone thought that meant the protections for workers would be lowered in Victoria and Queensland. That's what the bill says at the moment there. Now, there is a way, if we end up in the amendment stage, of being able to fix that. That would be a good, sensible thing to be able to do.
One Nation seemed to come up with a bit of a middle ground here when it came to casuals getting permanent benefits. After, I think the government wanted that after 12 months. One Nation said, we'll do it after 6. Is that something you support?
Well, what they've still got, though, is the first definition of a casual is whatever the employer says it is. So instead of the common law definition of a casual, which looks at a few things, but principally looks at how you're rostered, the government's wanting to say, well, yeah, even if you're rostered on full-time hours from the second day at work, if on day one the employer says, no, you're a casual, then that's where you're stuck. Now, that's an appalling position. It also wants to take away the rights of a whole lot of cases that are already before the courts and retrospectively take away the rights of workers there. So what One Nation have done there, it gives them something to talk about, but it still leaves workers worse off if the bill went through in that form.
All right, yesterday we saw the UK deliver its drivers worker status. This is something that you've been talking about that you're going to take to the next election. But do you accept that by and large here in Australia it's a different kettle of fish? Uber actually does provide minimum wage to most of its riders.
Well, people still earn less than the minimum wage. I've never said everybody is always below the minimum wage, but if you think of that term, minimum wage, and you say, but it's not the minimum, then what is the point? And
well,
so
actually, there was some research that suggested that Uber in Australia, on average, delivers an hourly wage of around $22. That's higher than the minimum wage, isn't it?
Yeah, but if it's the average, then you're saying that you've got people working for less than the minimum wage. And so the principle there, and it's not a particular attack on one company, like you're talking about Uber there's a whole lot of companies in here, and they're not just delivery riders and rideshare businesses, they go all the way into the NDIS and into the care economy.
Yeah.
So it's a very big area, and the principle, it's not an attack on one company, the principle just has to be really simple. That we want to make sure that people aren't paid less than the minimum wage. The response from the government has been, oh, that's too complicated. Well, we've seen two things from the UK decision. First, we've seen it's not that complicated, it can be done. And the second thing that we've seen in the UK is it hasn't resulted in an increased price for consumers.
Just while we're in the UK, the EU has threatened once again to hoard vaccines. It's directed against the United Kingdom mainly, but it just shows that Australia is at the mercy of the EU at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, a whole lot of what the government told us with vaccines is turning out at the moment not to be true. So we were told that Australia was at the front of the queue. Now, that's clearly not true. We were told that Australia would have 4 million vaccinations by the end of this month. That's clearly not going to happen. The government needs to be upfront, and because we all want this vaccination rollout to work. But you know, if people are logging onto a website like they were told yesterday, and the whole thing's clogged up and jammed, and they can't get an appointment booked, and the government has had months and months to be able to plan for this, the government needs to come clean and let us know what's organised, what's happening, and why is it not working at the moment?
Why isn't it? What would you have done?
Well, they've had months to plan. You should, for example, have been able to have a web page that could cope with the number of people who were being asked to log on and make appointments. You know, for when the media came out, I think it was yesterday's papers, you know, the marketing of it had been done perfectly by the government. They'd planned all of that brilliantly, and the message was out there, get on, here's the web page, log on, book your appointment. People went and did it and it didn't work. All we need is for the delivery to match what's announced. And what we've seen so far with the vaccination program, yeah, we want people to get vaccinated, and so I don't want any of this to cloud that principle. We want people to get vaccinated. It's important. It's not just a way of looking after your own health, it's a way of looking after the health of the people around you. But the government simply has to make sure the delivery matches the announcement. And at the moment, we're seeing this roll out the same way as most announcements that they get involved with.
The way you see it at the moment, do you think we're going to meet that October target?
Well, we're certainly not going to get 4 million doses by the end of this month. That was the first milestone that they put down.
Yeah.
We're not going to get anywhere near that. I want the October target to be met. I would have liked the March target to have been met as well. It's on the government simply to be competent and to match what they announce.
OK, we will see. Tony Burke, pleasure as always. Thanks.
Great to be back.